All right, pleased to welcome back to the program David Alter, who covers the Toronto Maple Leafs for the Leafs Nation. So glad to have David part of the Nation Network family for this segment of the All 32 delivered by DoorDash. David, when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, another 5-goal outing for Jack Campbell over the weekend. Give me your level of concern of the Leafs goaltending, certainly also in light of Kyle Dubas and his comments heading into the weekend about his lack of concern for Toronto's goaltending. Do you buy it?
Yeah, you know what, Frank? I don't necessarily buy it. I think you kind of have to toe the line. There's not really much the Leafs could do in terms of addressing that market, the goaltending market, with their cap hit right now and some of the other areas that they do need to address. So my personal level of concern is maybe at a 7 out of 10 right now. It's certainly increasing. I think it was maybe at a 5 a couple of weeks ago. And Peter Mrazek, who's been playing in there, hasn't been that much better. So, goaltending is certainly a concern, and it looks like the team is just going to try and play better defensively while they figure it all out.
Well, that's my biggest question. Of course, being part of the goalie union here myself, I watch Campbell and Mrazek, and I'm not going to make excuses for their play. I don't think it's been good enough. They have more that they can give. But what's going on in front of them? Like, what's the feeling within the coach's office, within the fans, within Toronto of the performance that the defense, and not just the D, the entire club, is putting on the ice in front of the Leafs goaltenders?
Yeah, you know, there certainly is concern there. When you look back at last month, they were playing a lot of these teams that are lower than them in the standings, and there were a lot of 2-on-1 rushes, breakaway chances, grade A chances that are very difficult for goaltenders to make those kind of saves in. And so it kind of conflates and maybe doesn't properly show a good save percentage in terms of the stats or anything like that. But over the last couple of games, it looks like they've been kind of bearing back a little bit, but maybe they're just not winning the one-on-one battles in front of net, leading to tip-ins in front and some losses in the battles there from some of the defense. The Leafs do have concerns in that regard. Jake Muzzin hasn't been around on the LTI, and certainly physical defensemen, and so they still kind of tinker around with their lineup 1 through 6 to try and play better in that regard. Some of that to bear responsibility for some of the Leafs' struggles defensively and why there's been a lot of goals against as of late.
So, David, if you're to take a look at the Leafs and how this could shape up to be a fascinating next 2 weeks, if you were to rank their order of priorities in your mind between, and I think this is really the huge part of what's going on with Toronto at the deadline, there's multiple holes at multiple positions. You'd probably like to, in addition to beef up your second pair, find a winger that maybe has a little bit of bite as well. So if you were to take a look at, goaltending, defense, help on the wing, how would you rank those order of priorities?
Yeah, so I still think D is number 1. A top 6 forward would probably be number 2. If it's a swing forward, then the goaltender probably moves up into that number 2 spot. But if you're looking at a top 6 left winger, that would be your number 2. And then goaltending maybe in the depth spot at number 3. I mean, they really don't have that much space to work with, and the cost of trying to upgrade their goaltending now, I think, will signal a real panic move from the team, and as a result, teams across the league will ask for a very high price, and the Leafs really don't want to empty out the cupboards of very little prospects and draft picks that they do have remaining in a year that they're trying to go for it. So I still think it's top 4D number 1, left winger at the second line is number 2, and then your goaltending's got to be a very close number 3 at this point.
David, given all those holes and how they're all going to be difficult to fill, in addition to staring down the possibility of facing, the Florida Panthers, for instance, in round 1, and if you win a round, then your lucky treat is you get the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 2. Should doing nothing be an option for the Leafs at the deadline?
I think it can be an option if the prices end up being too much, but for the management, I don't think that's the case, just because this really is a year that they have a lot at stake. I don't know if they necessarily survive this if they don't show some progress from a playoff standpoint to the years before. Look, it's no secret. They've struggled to get past the first round. They elected to go with the core 4 forwards of Nylander, Tavares, and Marner and Nylander. I think I mentioned all of them, but all those four in that regard, they put their whole stake into this. So if they do nothing, that means they just don't have the price to mortgage the future, but the management is kind of in a situation where they really have to go for it. So it's a tricky balance there. I think if it comes out that the prices were way too high and the cost was going to be too much, perhaps they don't do it. But I really do think that they have to try and address one of those needs we talked about in order to have any sort of success going forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a more interesting team to watch over these next 2 weeks. A lot on the line, as you mentioned, David. You can read all of David Alter's coverage, as you can see, in Columbus from tonight's game, as well as beyond. David Alter, the only reporter at every Maple Leafs home and road game, as well as practice, covering it for theleafsnation.com. Thank you so much to David. This has been another edition of the All 32 delivered by DoorDash. You can read the promo codes at the bottom of your screen. DFODD if you're in Canada, DFODDUS if you're in the United States. That gets you 25% off and free delivery on your first order with DoorDash. All your favorites delivered right to your door by DoorDash.